Hello everybody, this is another Hot Wheels Collector video. Today we are taking a look at the Ford Capri Group 5. This car features in the Race Day Car Culture set for 2023 and is car number 4 out of 5 in that set. This car is actually a brand new casting for this case, and it's a very well executed one at that. So I will quickly mention where I actually found this car then. So I found this car at a pretty local, the closest one to me at least, Smyth's Toy Superstore at the price of about £9. Yeah, pretty decent price for premiums here. The cheapest you will get them is £7.20 at the Entertainer, but that's when they're on discount. They usually are on discount, like most of the time, but sometimes they're not, and that figure does go straight back up to £9. So the average price here and the standard price you will be paying for premiums is about £9. It's well worth the money in most cases though. This one is no exception to that. Alright, so now I actually want to tell you a little bit of story about finding this car. So I actually didn't find this car for a very long time after the main waves of this car hit. In fact, I was pretty confident I wasn't going to find this car, very much like the Sierra Cosworth, which came before it in the previous case of Canyon Warriors. But luckily, on a Saturday morning, at opening time, I went into a Smyth's. I looked through the Race Day set, not expecting to find anything, and at the very back were two of these Capris. I also met a fellow collector there as well. He was very nice. We talked a little bit about Hot Wheels, but yeah, really happy to have found this thing. There was actually two of them. He took the other one, and everybody was happy. I also did pick up pretty much the rest of the set. The only car in the set which I wasn't too keen on is the yellow Mercedes, and that's because I do have the silver one, and I think the silver one is far superior to this yellow one, but that's just my opinion. But before we get into the actual showcase of the Hot Wheels model, let me give you some facts about the real life car. So in real life, this car had an alternative name, that was the Zack Speed Capri, and that is the 1981 version. There was a version before, I believe it had a smaller engine which had less horsepower, so this is kind of the revised version of that car. The Ford Zack Speed had an inline 4 engine which was 1.7 litres in displacement, and it was also turbocharged. It produced 600 horsepower and 482 newton meters of torque. That converts to 355 pound-feet of torque. This car weighed only 790 kilograms, so a very light car. I believe that is because either the components are made out of fiberglass or they'll be created through carbon fiber, but I'm willing to bet it's probably fiberglass components to keep that weight down instead of a lot of metal body parts, and hence this car is definitely not road legal. It was only allowed to be used on the track, as you would expect with most track cars. This car also had a 60 km per hour to 200 km time in only 6.3 seconds, pretty impressive. This car also had a 5-speed transmission and was rear-wheel drive. Anyways, that's it for the facts about this car. Now let's move on to the showcase of the Hot Wheels model. Alright, so kicking off this showcase then, we'll first of all take a look at the side of this car, and I'll first of all mention the wheel choice on this thing. So this car is rolling on the Rio Rider Trans Am wheels, which first debuted in 2011. As you will know, all premium cars come with rubber tyres, so that's a very nice addition to this car. And these wheels, generally, the Rio Riders, make the cars just look so much better. A lot of people wheel swap a lot of the mainline cars as well, just to make them look a lot better, because a lot of the time the mainlines actually have quite a lot of detail, but a lot of people don't really like the mainline wheels, and I can agree. I think the moulding on the Rio Riders is just better. As for the actual colour of these wheels then, they are done in this bronzy kind of colour with a chrome lip painted on there. Of course, that bronze is actually the colour of the plastic. These wheels are still plastic like the mainlines, however they just are a bit better moulded, as I've said. And the chrome lip is actually painted on there. As for the actual colour of the rest of the car then, it's all painted in this glossy white colour. And for the tamper work on this thing, there's a lot of tamper work across the car. But first of all, let's talk about the side of this car. So on the side, first of all, we do have the Ford logo on the spoiler of the car. We also do have the Ford blue colours. So we have two different blues, one darker one and one lighter one. And those different blue colours feature across the car. We also do have the Ford Credit logo here, which is done in red tampo, and the rating is done in white tampo. And we also do have the Ford logo just below that. We also do have the Racing number 1 featuring on this car as well, done in black tampo work, and that is surrounded by a black rectangular outline. We also do have the Ford Motorsport logo featuring on the door of this car, as well as the Capri logo featuring there. The Ford Motorsport has been tampoed in blue, whilst the Capri writing has been done in white. Next up, just above the front fender of this car, we do have the Ford logo once again returning, and we also do have the writing which reads Ford Genuine Parts done in white tamper work there. And finally, we do have the Ford Motorcraft logo. If you don't know what they are the official parts brand for Ford and supply parts for Ford cars, specifically older Ford cars. That's what they kind of specialise in. And that logo is tampered in a mixture of black, white and red. I also do want to bring this car in as a small reference to the car we're looking at in today's video. That is because this car does share a very similar livery to the one we are looking at. This car is the 93 Ford Escort RS Cosworth and featured in the Boulevard Mix 2 for 2023. This was also a brand new casting for that mix. Alright, so that is it for the tamper work on the side of this car. Now let's actually talk about the metal casting itself. So first of all, we do have the side skirt of this car being created through the black metal base, and that black metal base does create the vent which features on the rear fender of this car. I will also mention that this casting does feature wing mirrors, and I will also mention that the windows on this car are wound up. Finally, I will mention that the door handle of this car does also feature in the metal casting. Very nice detail there. Anyways, that's really it for the side of this thing. Now let's move on to the front of this car. Alright, so taking a look at the front of this car then, we do see quite a decent amount of detail here, as you would expect with premium models, as you do pay a premium price for them, so you do expect more detail than a mainline. First of all, we do have the headlights created in a realistic look, and those headlights are created through a mixture of white tampo and black tampo. We also do have the front grille of this car also tampoed on there in black. We also do see the Ford badge here returning. We also do see the Team Ford writing done in black, as well as two more Ford badges done in blue tampo. Finally, I'll mention that the front splitter of this car is tampoed in light blue, the same light blue which features across the rest of the car. We've already seen this exact same light blue on the side of this car which we've just previously looked at. Anyways, that's it for the front of this thing. Now let's move on to the rear of this car. Alright, so taking a look at the rear of this car then, once again we do see detail here. So first of all, I will mention that the fenders do actually have vents on them, and they are created through black tampo. Very nice detail there, and that is accurate to the real life car. I will also mention that the rear lights have also been tampoed on here. Those rear lights do include the indicator lights, as well as the brake lights and reverse lights. Of course, the indicator or turn signal lights are tampoed in orange. We also do have the brake lights tampoed in red, and the reverse lights tampoed in white, as you would expect. We also do have the Team Ford logo once again returning to the rear of this car in black, the same exact colour that this logo featured in at the front of this car. And finally, I'll mention that you can see there is a bit of dark blue colour on the rear of this thing, once again tampoed on there. It's the same dark blue which we saw on the side of this car, which we've already looked at. Alright, so now actually talking about the casting itself then. So first of all, you can see this gigantic spoiler which features here. That is created through the actual metal and is not a separate plastic piece like we do see on some premium models. I will also mention that this car does not actually have a diffuser at all. Instead, the only thing which we do see that resembles a diffuser is two small fins. You might not be able to see them right now, but I will flip the car onto its bottom so you can see them a little bit better in just a second. But they are created through the black base metal. Hopefully you can see those fins which feature in the black metal base which I was talking about. I also do want to quickly mention that this car does not have a rear exit exhaust. Instead, this car does actually have a side exit exhaust, and that exhaust is created through the black metal base. You can see that clearly on the picture here. I will also put an arrow pointing towards it in during editing. Alright, so taking a look at the top of this car then, we do have quite a lot of detail here, mainly in terms of tampo work. Okay, so first of all we do have the spoiler of this car featuring in the metal casting. You can see it a bit better from this angle. You can also see on the top of the spoiler we do have the Ford logo featuring here done in blue tampo, as well as the Motorsport logo featuring here once again in blue as well. I do want to quickly mention that the interior plastic of this car is done in black, and we also do have a separate plastic piece which creates the roll cage of this car, and that separate plastic piece is done in a dark grey colour. I will also mention that this casting does feature windshield wipers, however they're not in the standard place. Instead, the windshield wiper of this car is actually standing upright and features in the plastic which is made to represent the glass of the real life car. Whilst we're here, I also want to mention that this car does actually have a sun strip tampoed onto the windshield of this thing. The sun strip is done in this bluish colour, and then we do have the Ford Motorsport writing on there as well. And finally, taking a look at the hood of this car then, this is where a lot of detail lies. So first of all, we have those returning blue colours. We also do have some vents near the windshield of this car done in black tampo. We also do have 2 hood pins featuring on the hood of this car tampoed in black. We also do have fender vents on this car. These fender vents have been tampoed in black, but interestingly on the real life car and on the card art, they are not as obvious and they are actually quite hard to see, as you can see there. So they are quite exaggerated on this Hot Wheels model. They're not actually in the metal casting, or it doesn't look like they are. Instead, they are just tampoed on there, so they do have to be done in black so that they are very obvious that they are actually detailed on there. I will also mention that the Racing number 1 returns to the hood of this car, tampoed in black with once again the same rectangle surrounding it. Finally, I do want to mention that the Ford Motorsport logo does return to the hood of this car, tampoed in a mixture of dark and light blue. And finally, we do have the Capri writing once again returning to the hood of this car in the same kind of font. However, this is actually tampoed in blue, unlike the side of this car where the Capri logo is tampoed in white. Finally, I'll mention that there are 2 more hood pins which feature in the metal casting. However, they do not actually receive any tampo work detail, unfortunately. I'm not sure why that is, as on the card art you can see there, they are actually in black, but on the Hot Wheels model they are just left white. I'm quite confused by that. You can see on the card art as well there, you can see the other 2 hood pins, or I believe they're hood pins, which are also black, but on the Hot Wheels model they've only done the rear ones black, whilst the front ones just receive no tampo work. That's quite confusing why they've done that. I'll also mention that there is actually a bulge in the hood of this car as well. It's quite hard to see on camera, it's a little bit more obvious in person. And finally, I'll mention that there is another vent featuring on the hood of this car in the metal casting. It also does not receive any detail and is quite difficult to see on camera. And interestingly, it's also very hard to see on the card art if it is even there. I can't see it on the card art there, so I'm not sure if it is a vent. It looks like one though, and there's definitely something there in the metal casting. But anyways, that is it for the top of this thing. And that is also it for my showcase of this car. So now let's move on to my final thoughts and review on this thing. Alright, so now it's time for my final thoughts and review on this car. I really do like this casting. I think it's an absolutely awesome one, and I'm pleased the Hot Wheels team did do this thing. It looks fantastic. The metal casting itself is just superb, and it looks so accurate to the real life car. I'm really impressed with this thing. I also like the fact that it does include wing mirrors and also does have windshield wipers. Everything in terms of detail is there. I also do like the wheel choice on this thing. I love bronze coloured wheels, especially on some cars like this one. They just look fantastic. They also interestingly added a chrome lip to them, which I actually think enhances the design. It is so nice looking, especially in person. I also like the tampo work, lots of detail here as you would expect. You definitely get your money's worth with this car with this kind of racing livery on it. Absolutely all the details you could wish for are here. The only thing which is still puzzling me is those hood pins. I don't know why they didn't receive any tampo work. That's just some kind of mystery which I don't think many people will know, if anybody. But there you go. I also do like the fact that they've used the base metal of this car to create the side skirts, as well as, more interestingly, the rear fender vent. Really interesting use of that. I'm pleased they did use it though. Very clever designing there from the Hot Wheels team. But yeah, this thing is just superb. I highly recommend you pick this thing up. Here in the UK, it's quite hard to find, but if you do see it, it's definitely worth it. On eBay, they're not too expensive here in the UK still, but they are quite hard to find in stores at a retail price. So anyways, that does lead me on my score out of 10 for this car. One of this car out of 10, it's going to be receiving a very solid and respectable 10 out of 10. This thing is absolutely beautiful. I just love this thing, especially the colour scheme. The white on blue just looks awesome. Big fan right here. But anyways, that is it for this video. So if you guys did enjoy, make sure you like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Remember, you can also press that notification bell so you do not miss any new uploads. Remember, you can also share this video with any friends, family, or any groups who may be interested. But remember, don't feel pressured if you don't feel like having anybody who may be interested. You watching this video all the way to the end means so much to me, and I really do thank you for making it all the way up until this point. But anyways, that is it for this video, so I hope you guys did enjoy, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye everyone.